From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Great news about a sweet summer treat.
We've just had exceptional environmental factors this year.
We check in on a cool watermelon crop on a hot summer's day. Food and feed versus fuel. Doesn't always have to be a battle.
So livestock is a very, very vital part of the corn industry.
How they can all work together in the ag world in our One Team report. As farm country cleans up and assesses the damage from another derecho. Right now on AgDay. Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. The National Weather Service confirms another derecho tore through the heartland this week. The powerful storm tearing through South Dakota as well as Minnesota and Iowa. Now the storm carrying heavy rain, hail, and powerful winds. Ahead of the storm, ominous scenes. Green skies were spotted north of Sioux Falls. VH storm chasers clocking 80-mile-per-hour winds just north of Crooks, South Dakota during the storm. Now they say many cornfields around the area were flattened. Steve Lounsbury farms just west of Crooks in Montrose. He took these pictures of what happened to his fields. He believes the corn will stand back up. As for the beans, he's concerned about the impact on yields. And south of Sioux Falls in Lincoln County, a similar story at Jim Gibbons' farm. He is hoping the corn will recover and stand back up in 10 days. He says the rain there was good for the beans. This is the third derecho to hit the Sioux Falls area since 2020. But USDA meteorologist Brad Rippey says the latest storm wasn't as severe as the one that hit back in August 2020. Taking a look at damaging winds recorded in 2020 compared to Tuesday's storm. Now he says South Dakota appears to have borne the brunt of the storms this week. The highest winds were recorded near Huron, South Dakota at 96 miles per hour. Those high winds from the derecho were tracked for at least 500 miles. Meteorologist Matt Yurosavik joins us, and Matt, farmers needed the rain, but that wind was a bit too much.
Well, as we had that derecho move through parts of the upper Midwest, and really we brought a lot of that rain and also wind. A lot of wind reports coming out of places like South Dakota. So as we rewind this into really Tuesday evening and then into Wednesday, look at this line of storms bowing out, and that bow that we see on the radar really signifies that strong winds kind of pushing out behind it. And then in behind that line, as we rewind this radar yet again, you'll see where those storms start all the way up into northwest parts of South Dakota, making their way through Iowa, and all these little boxes here, wind reports and damage reports, whether that's trees down, roofs blown off houses, anything like that. That was all coming in behind that storm system. So here it is one last time as that derecho moved on through, causing a lot of damage and even pushing down some corn in portions of Iowa. So that's something that we'll continue to keep an eye on there as they get a little bit of rain, but also had some of that wind damage as well. We'll talk more about your national forecast coming up in just a little bit. Clinton?
Farmers in the Midwest have seen some timely rains as of late, but hasn't been enough to improve crop conditions. Corn condition now ranked 64% good to excellent. That's down 3% from last week. States such as Indiana, Kentucky, and North Carolina posted the largest declines in crop conditions week over week. Soybeans, they stood at 63% good to excellent. That's down 2% from last week. The greatest condition declines were in the eastern Corn Belt and Mid-South. While winter wheat harvest now at 54% complete, that's 6% ahead of average.
AgDay is brought to you by the National Corn Growers Association. Beef, poultry, pork, and dairy producers combine to be the corn growers' #1 customer. Both industries need each other to be successful. Together, they are one team. Learn more at ncga.com.
Corn prices hit historical highs just a few weeks ago. The last time the market was at that level, the food and feed versus fuel debate really heated up. However, as AgDay's Michelle Rook reports, this time it's different. She joins us with more in the second part of our One Team series.
Clinton Corn Belt states like Iowa and Nebraska lead the nation in corn, ethanol, and cattle production. And as producers there told me, each part of that business model benefits from the other, even during the recent inflationary times in agriculture. In the heart of cattle country, producers are well aware of the synergism between cattle and corn production, and that includes Nebraska's Mark Jagels.
Nebraska sits in the golden triangle with livestock, corn, and ethanol, and I think that is so true of what we can produce and how we produce it so cost efficiently and effectively.
Over 75% of the state's corn is irrigated, and that consistent crop is the reason so many feedlots have set up shop in Nebraska. But Jagels says that corn also goes beyond the state's borders.
Over 40% of the corn grown here in Nebraska is utilized through livestock across the United States. So livestock is a very, very vital part of the corn industry.
The corn and Distillers grain fed to cattle in Nebraska also differentiate the finished meat product. Cattle producers say the role corn and DDGs play in the ration has helped differentiate their product in the marketplace. Steve Wellman, director of the Department of Agriculture, says that product is demanded by consumers at home and abroad.
Nebraska beef is sold around the world. Last year in 2021, we hit a record level of value of $1.81 billion of Nebraska beef sold internationally.
The corn-fed beef program is part of the Nebraska Straight from the Good Life marketing campaign and core to their long export relationship in Southeast Asia.
Japan had been our leading customer for export markets, but South Korea has really grown recently, and actually South Korea is now the leading destination for beef from Nebraska.
And USMEF figures indicate U.S. red meat exports utilized 537 million bushels of corn and 3.4 million tons of DDGs annually.
In the big scheme of things, I mean, for a corn producer, I mean, that's adding almost $3.5 billion worth of income to a corn producer by the corn that is utilized in the livestock along with the distillers.
And feeding corn to cattle adds more value to the commodity than exporting it out of state, all the way through the supply chain.
Nebraska processes more beef than any other state in the United States. That creates jobs, and then the export piece of that creates jobs along the way too.
Cattlemen in the nation's top corn and ethanol producing state of Iowa also rely on the corn, but also the distillers grain that the industry provides. In fact, David Trowbridge says it's been a game changer in cattle rations.
And they're extremely important to us as far as feeding cattle, both in a price-wise, energy-wise.
Their inclusion rates run from 25 to 45% depending on the price, but DDGs have cut their feed costs.
At times, it's been significant, probably 15%.
He says distillers grain also improves the palatability of the ration and improves consumption.
It's made us all better bunk managers in the feeding industry, no doubt about that.
However, even with historically high-priced corn, he says they're able to make it work on their balance sheet.
We're just dealing with a lot more revenue, expenses going into the cattle, but more money coming out of the cattle also. So our net returns, our margins, really haven't changed a whole lot due to the high price of corn.
And he says the whole reason they have the cattle industry in Iowa is because of the ability to feed local grain. So it's a close link that they value. I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay. Cattle producers aren't the only part of the livestock sector that benefit from locally produced corn and DDGs. Tomorrow we'll follow a bushel of corn to the ethanol plant and to a hog operation to show you the impact it makes along the way.
All right, thanks, Michelle. Well, the commodity markets bounced around on Wednesday. We'll see where they ended up. Coming up next, an analysis. And later, nothing says summer quite like the sweetness of watermelon. We'll check in on production in California and Louisiana today in the country.
Ag Day is brought to you by the End Zone by Farm Shop MFG, which allows you to rehydrate your soybeans from 10 to 13%. On a 20,000 bushel bin, that's an extra semi-load added to your bottom line. Order your End Zone fan control by July 31st and receive $200 off.
Grain markets tried to push back into positive territory on Thursday, while livestock made some modest gains. AgDay's Michelle Rook has more in today's market report.
Joining us with market analysis, Don Rose with U.S. Commodities. We did see a slight bounce in corn and soybeans, kind of in recovery mode. The funds, are they done liquidating? Are we going to see much more downside pressure?
Well, you know, what we really did is we've unwound all of the news that we had on the upside going back to February. We started the big rally. We pulled back into that 550, 580 on December corn, around that $13 mark on November soybeans. Deeply oversold, Michelle. And I think looking forward, we've got the July 12th report next Tuesday. 9 times out of 10, you kind of balance this oversold market back. So you would expect the market to find a little support here and get a rally into the report, and then take your chances on the report. But remember, we're going to dial in those acre numbers on soybeans, down 2.7 million, into this report.
So even if we have positive news, is it going to take something like a big change in the weather for this market to really recover much, or what is it going to take?
Well, I think what we really have to look at, of course, weather always does it this time of year. We've got that high pressure system that comes into the Corn Belt, then it moves out to the Intermountain West, sits there, then comes back, gives us some moisture, cool down, and temperature. But the other thing we're really looking for is the demand. If we're going to, with the supplies that we have, what's the real value of the price at this level? So we're looking for a demand-led rally to stall us out to the downside move. In other words, the end user needs to show up and cover, and that's what we're going to look for as we're competing with Brazil on corn right now, and soon the southern part of the Midwest.
Do you get much recovery, though?
Well, you know, what do we have on the upside? December corn has major resistance at $6. That was the support. And then we gapped open lower to start the week at 604.5 gap. There is still that gap at 728.5 on the upside, Michelle. That looks elusive right now. And on soybeans, the same type of thing, 1391.5 on November soybeans. And then there's that 1526.5 on the upside. Looks elusive also right now.
Okay, some things for our chart watchers to be looking for. Thanks so much for joining us, Don Rose, U.S. Commodities. Our full analysis on agweb.com. More Ag Day coming up.
For all your risk management and trading needs, call one of the U.S. Commodities specialists at 800-247-4071.
Ag Day is brought to you by MetLife Investment Management's Agricultural Finance Group. MetLife Investment Management is positioned to help you grow your business with a competitive farm, ranch, and agribusiness loan. To learn more, visit investments.metlife.com/agriculture.
We've reported on Lake Mead hitting historic low levels. Now the Great Salt Lake in Utah has also dropped to its lowest level on record. The lake's surface water elevation fell to 4,190 feet over the weekend. That's below the previous record low set back in July of last year. Now the state now calling for urgent action to preserve the lake. Joining us now, we've got Matt Yurisovic taking a look at our national forecast. And Matt, when we talk about hot and heat, boy, that continues.
Oh yeah, the heat and the humidity through the middle of the country, but they're still seeing a lot of that heat back in the west, and this ridge is going to keep on through the weekend, so really it's not going anywhere, at least through much of next week. And you can really see that ridge building right through the middle part of the country as we head through the day on Saturday, all the way up into the northern plains. That's where that heat will get to. Still very hot and dry back in the south and west. Hot and humid along the Gulf Coast. A little break from that heat from the Great Lakes, Mid-Atlantic, and up into the Northeast. But as we head through next week, it's still going to be warm across most of the lower 48. So a little bit of help from some of these drought conditions, parts of Illinois and Indiana, and even up into the upper Midwest. Not a lot of rain, though, back to the southwest this week. Still going to be looking at those drought conditions. We'll get an updated drought monitor as we head through the day today. Later on today, we'll get that, and we'll bring it to you tomorrow right here on Ag Day. So heading through here, we've got a lot of rainfall to talk about, and that is going to be really, again, right through parts of the Corn Belt here, all the way from Ohio back into parts of Illinois. Iowa especially dealt with that extreme storm the other day, that derecho that came through that we talked about a little bit earlier. More rainfall in some of those same areas, then just a few showers for parts of the west, and then more of those pop-up showers and thunderstorms down along the southwest southwest, southeast into the Gulf Coast and even parts of Florida as well. So here's a look at that system for today. This is the low right here, riding right along that stationary front that's going to bring some more pockets of some heavier rain to portions of the Corn Belt there, and that's going to slide eastward as we head through the day on Friday. Kind of a combination of fronts coming together there, create some more pop-up showers and storms. Meanwhile, high pressure over most of the rest of the country, bringing out the sunshine, but also allowing some of those storms to bubble up where that heat and humidity will be maxed out. And you can see the temperatures this afternoon back in the hundreds here right across the center of the country, and still hot and humid across the east, dealing with the humidity, keeping those low temperatures up into the 70s and low 80s. And then even by tomorrow, still dealing with temperatures above that century mark. And we're going to continue to see that as we head into the weekend and into early next week, as this ridge likely is going to stick around a little bit longer. And we'll keep you updated right here on Ag Day. That's a look around the country. Now let's take a look at the weather where you live. Arcadia, Florida, PM showers and thunderstorms, a high of 92 degrees. 81 in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, with thunderstorms likely throughout the day. And Prescott, Arizona, sunny and hot, a high near 90 degrees.
Registration is open for the 2022 Pro Farmer Crop Tour. Join our team as we gain insight on the 2022 growing season in person or online. Visit profarmercroptour.com/register to select the stop nearest you.
Updating you on plans to build a massive meat processing plant in Rapid City, South Dakota. The company behind it recently giving the community the chance to ask questions about the proposal. Now, as we've reported, Western Legacy Development Corporation wants to construct an 8,000 head per day packing plant just south of Rapid City. If realized, the plant would eclipse the total capacity of all other recently proposed startup packing facilities combined. TV station KNBN reporting that CEO Megan Kingsbury told a crowd that while South Dakota cattle would be given preference for processing, they would take in cattle from 5 neighboring states. She also stated she wasn't asking for anyone's money and that she was, quote, doing this on my own dime, end quote. Kingsbury also said the corporation had contracted with an unnamed Fortune 100 fast food company for the plant's beef. Plans call for a $1.1 billion state-of-the-art plant that would cover 1 million square feet and employ 2,500 people. Cattle are being called on to prevent some of the devastation caused by wildfires. USDA's Agricultural Research Service is managing a research project where livestock eat extensive strips of highly flammable cheatgrass. The idea to leave just 2 to 3 inch stubble, reducing the fuel load that could otherwise turn small rangeland fires into megafires. The current experiment is taking place in Idaho, Nevada, and Oregon. It says in just 4 years, the targeted grazing has helped contain 3 fires around Elko, Nevada. Nothing beats the heat quite like a cool, sweet slice of watermelon. We'll check in on production in California and Louisiana as ripe melons make their way to market in the country. Next.
Find farm equipment on Machinery Pete's July 19th online auction. No reserve, no buyer fees. Start bidding now at auctions.machinerypete.com.
The summertime treat is seeing some price increases, but producers seem to be able to keep up with demand. The California Farm Bureau reports a carton of 45 San Joaquin Valley seedless watermelons was selling for up to $161 at the end of June. That was up from $126 in June of last year. Seedless miniature watermelons were going for up to $13.95 a carton. That's up from $10.95 last year. It says that watermelon production in the valley remains steady this year. In Louisiana, Washington Parish, watermelons are ripe and ready to top off your summer meal. LSU Ag Center correspondent Craig Gautreaux says now is a good time to get one.
In Louisiana, Washington Parish and watermelons are synonymous. And as a summer treat to help beat the heat, now is the time to enjoy one. But what is it that makes these watermelons so good?
I believe it has a lot to do with the soil type, the soil fertility, the pH of the soil. All those things kind of come together to make a good quality melon.
Last year was a poor year for melons, according to Tally. Believe it or not, wet weather is not conducive to producing a good crop of watermelons. This year's weather has been much more cooperative.
Typically, your melons come in, generally speaking, a couple of weeks before the 4th, and we've just had exceptional environmental factors this year that would allow for them to come in a little bit earlier.
Watermelon patches aren't the prettiest of fields because weed pressure is intense, especially when grown on bare ground as opposed to using a plastic mulch barrier. LSU Ag Center scientists used one of Talley's fields to test a variety of herbicides.
In grower fields, it's a real-world spectrum of weeds. Lots of broadleaves. There's probably 10 or 12 different species of broadleaf weeds that they have out here in the field, and we can't repeat this kind of thing in a research station.
With the LSU Ag Center, this is Craig Gotro reporting.
All right, thanks, Craig. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day out in farm country.
It's time to sign up for the 2022 United Pork Americas Conference in Orlando, Florida. Register today at unitedporkamericas.com and join us September 7th through the 9th.